Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, today we're in a car that was absolutely everywhere when I was growing up. In fact, it's one of my favourite cars of all time. It's the P38 Range Rover. You see, in the mid to late 90s and early 2000s, if you'd made it, you probably had one of these sitting on your driveway. It was the ultimate symbol of success. Everybody well-to-do had them. Footballers had them, pop stars had them, royalty had them, even George Michael had one. In fact, his old 4.6 litre HSE sold recently at auction. Back then, this was the car that told the world you'd arrived. So this is the P38 Range Rover, and it first launched in '94 and it ran until 2002, and it marked something of a turning point for Land Rover. This was the first truly modern Range Rover, and it was also the last Range Rover you could actually fix yourself. All the cars that came after this were so loaded with technology, you almost needed a laptop to change a light bulb. But this was the last one you could actually work on yourself. So I thought today we'd take one for a drive and see what they're actually like to live with in 2025. In terms of design and presence, then, I really don't think it can be beaten. The other thing you've got to remember is the original Range Rover that came before this one ran for about 25 years, so it did look quite old-fashioned. So when this came out in 1994, it looked like it arrived from another planet. And you know what, I still think the P38 is a brilliant piece of design 30 years later. It's so unapologetically square. This is the 1990s on wheels. You don't get any of that swoopy, curvy, sporty nonsense you get on modern SUVs. This thing was serious. You get a bold, upright grille, slab sides, and an unmistakable silhouette. This really was the car that took Range Rover into the 21st century. I think in dark green or navy like this one with a nice light interior, it still looks so classy. It just looks like the kind of car you'd expect to see sitting outside a golf club parked next to a Bentley Arnage. It's definitely that kind of vibe. And it pulls off that thing that Range Rover seem to nail every single time, in that it looks right everywhere it goes. Inside the P38 Range Rover, then, it's proper old school luxury. You get thick, soft leather that smells like an old Chesterfield sofa. You get nice thick carpets. You get wood trim everywhere. And it's a real walnut veneer. It's not that printed vinyl they slap on the new ones. Every single button and switch has that chunky feel to it. Nothing's slim or flimsy or lightweight. Everything's really solid. The whole thing feels like it's been built for somebody wearing tweed, hunter wellies and a barber jacket. You sit up very high in this and you have a really commanding driving position. What's interesting is when you open the door, you don't get into this, you climb aboard. It's a proper experience. And I think that's part of the charm. It isn't trying to be something it's not. I just think it bridges the gap between the old classic and the L322 perfectly. I believe it's the perfect mix of old and new. Now, as posh as these cars look, in fact, speaking of posh, Victoria Beckham owned one of these back in the 90s. As posh as these looked, they were meant to be useful. And again, they pulled that off very well. So around the back, you get that iconic split tailgate, which is perfect for a picnic or sitting there while you have a flask of coffee. And having owned many Range Rovers over the years, it is a really useful idea that. It's the perfect place to remove your wellies or hiking boots. With the rear seats in place, the boot's a decent size. It offers 580 litres of space. Now with the rear seats folding down, that space increases to 1600. So whilst that's not quite a transit van, it is very accommodating. In the back there's a decent size of headroom and legroom, so that's quite accommodating. You also get a pop-out armrest in the middle. Up front in the P38, there's not actually as much room as you might expect, but because the windows are so big and so low, it does feel like you're looking down at everybody. It gives the impression of space, and don't get me wrong, I'm certainly not cramped here, but it isn't the most spacious cabin up front. In terms of visibility though, it is frankly unbeatable. It's like sitting in a fish tank. It feels really bright and airy. They're a really nice place to be, these. And because it's a proper Range Rover, it's got air suspension, so you get that magic carpet ride. It's really impressive. At the touch of a button, you can raise or lower it, and when you get on the motorway, it will lower itself to make it more aerodynamic. But if you want to go off-road, you can simply press this button here, and it'll raise up, and then you can pretty much tackle anything you like. That's the idea anyway. Whether or not it actually works 25 years later, all depends on the kind of life it's had. In terms of engine options, then the car I'm in today is a 2002 4.6 HSE, and this is the best one you could get. There were several other options. They did a 2.5 litre diesel from BMW or a smaller 4 litre V8 from Rover. This one was the most powerful though. This one offers 220 brake horsepower and about 300 pound-foot of torque. The smaller 4 litre I think was 190 horsepower, and the 2.5 litre turbo diesel was about 12. They are painfully, dangerously slow. And I'm not saying that to try and be funny either. Drive one and you'll see exactly where I'm coming from. 220 horsepower from a 4.6 litre V8 might not sound great in today's world, but back then it was very impressive. And it wasn't all about the performance, it was the way that it delivered that power. It's smooth and relaxed, and you get that lovely V8 burble. I mean, listen to this, for example. Sounds like a muscle car. It makes the kind of noise that makes you drive a little slower with the radio off, just so you can hear it. It isn't a quick car, this, by anyone's standards. 0 to 60 takes a leisurely 10 seconds, if the wind's behind you. To add to that, the 4-speed auto is about as quick as dial-up internet, but it just suits the car perfectly. It just wafts along effortlessly. Earlier examples of the P38 did come as a manual as well, but only in the 2.5 diesel or the 4-litre petrol. The 4.6 was auto only. It's really sad that I didn't have to research any of this, isn't it? It's just here, stored in this pointless brain of mine. As I touched on earlier, I wouldn't go for one of the 2.5 diesels. They're just not worth it. I'd definitely go for one of the petrols. The downside with the V8s, though, they are very thirsty. You'd be looking at around 12 or 14 miles per gallon, which in 2025 is sort of socially unacceptable, isn't it? But still, this isn't the kind of car you're going to use every day, is it? I very much doubt you're going to buy this as your daily car. On the road, as you might expect, it's very soft, very floaty, and just a really pleasant car to drive. It also feels nowhere near as big as an L322 or an L405. It feels nice and slim, this, which is a weird way to describe a Range Rover, but they've just got so big over the last few decades that this actually feels, well, I won't say a small car, but a medium-sized car. There is a fair amount of body roll, I can't pretend otherwise, but you just got to roll with it. Well, literally roll with it. It's never dangerous or anything, it's just part of its charm. You see, this isn't the car that you're going to chuck into corners, so don't worry about it. Instead, just enjoy it. Pop on your sunglasses, get the music playing, and pretend that you've just signed a new record deal. Off the tarmac, they're still seriously capable, which is really impressive. The air suspension gives you about 200mm of clearance in high mode, and it's got a proper low-range gearbox with a lock-in transfer case. So even though this looks like it belongs in Knightsbridge or Touareg, it'll happily plough through a muddy field. That is, of course, providing the air suspension hasn't grenaded itself. The thing that I love most about the P38, though, is that it represents a very specific moment in time. The world was kind of changing in the mid to late 90s, and this represents that. In my mind, this is from a time of the internet gaining more traction, people sending emails, the dot-com boom, telecommunications improving. Generally, the whole human race just getting more advanced. Whether that was for the better or not, I'll let you decide. But the original Range Rover, the classic, was basically a farm vehicle that was forced into a suit. The one that came after this, the L322, was all thanks to BMW's cash injection. And there's no doubt about it, it was a brilliant car, but it was full of technology and it was very luxurious. So I think the P38 bridges the gap between classic and L322 brilliantly. This is still mechanical enough that when you open the bonnet you can actually see an engine. It isn't covered in plastic covers. And you can still fix it yourself with a set of spanners, not a laptop or a subscription. Speaking of which, you might have to learn how to do head gaskets because these V8s were prone for blowing them. Yet inside it's properly comfortable and genuinely luxurious, but it still feels like a bit of a workhorse as opposed to the L322 that did feel like more of a businessman's express. In my opinion, this is the last Range Rover that feels like it was built by engineers rather than robots. And I think that's why people are starting to love them again. They were quite unloved for a period, but now all of a sudden prices are on the rise. They just remind you of a time when cars had soul. It's got that 90s nostalgia to it. When you're driving it, you're almost transported to a simpler time. And thinking about it, that's probably the reason I like them so much. This was definitely the Range Rover from my era. When I was a kid, this was the car to have and be seen in. Speaking of which, I must take my rose-tinted glasses off and talk to you about the thing that gives Range Rover the reputation: reliability. Or I suppose, lack of. If you've owned a P38, you'll know what I'm about to say. These weren't known for their indestructibility. They were quite fragile, actually. There are two main areas for concern: the engine in the V8s, as I touched on earlier, blowing the head gaskets, and secondly, most importantly, the air suspension. It can and will fail, sadly. When it works, it's brilliant. It gives it that majestic, floaty ride. But when it doesn't, it'll look a bit sad. The airbags can leak, the compressor can wear out, then you've got loads of sensors that can occasionally throw a bit of a hissy fit. So combined, it isn't the most reliable thing. I've got no doubt you'll have seen one of these at least once in your life, driving around a corner, tilting to one side like a dog cocking its leg. In fact, the last time I saw my own P38 down at my mechanics, it was listing to one side like the Costa Concordia. It can be sorted though. Lots of owners simply rip out the air suspension setup and replace them with coil springs, which is good, but it does kind of lose some of its charm and character. Then there's the cooling system. Hoses, radiators, water pumps, they will all fail eventually. Then you've got the electronics, which weren't great either, particularly on the early ones. From 2000 onwards, then they replaced them with a Bosch system. I believe early ones used a Lucas system, they weren't great. The later Bosch system was slightly better. Every now and then as you're driving, you'll probably get a warning message for no reason. It'll say things like gearbox fault, ABS fault, suspension inactive. It's almost like a disco of warning lights and beeps. Having said that, I've been out in this for a couple of hours now, and touch wood, hasn't put a foot wrong. It's been absolutely perfect. You know, even things like the door locks and windows can develop a personality of their own, but I'm afraid you're just going to have to turn a blind eye to that. Also, something to mention, the transmission can get a bit lazy and clunky if it hasn't been serviced, so I'd recommend you service that. Then you've got rust, which isn't horrendous compared to older models, but you still need to check the sills, the wheel arches and the floor pan, especially around the tailgate. Now, if you think about buying a Range Rover P38A, it's really important that you do a thorough vehicle history check first, and I always use a company called Car Vertical. It's really easy to use. All you do is go to carvertical.com and type in the reg or the VIN, and don't worry, I'll leave the link below in the video description. A few moments later, you get a full detailed report back, which will tell you things like whether the car's been stolen, written off, had a mileage rollback, or has outstanding finance on it. And it's really important that you do one of these checks before you hand over any cash, otherwise you could get stung. It isn't just a UK thing either, it works in 35 different countries. In addition to all that, it tells you things like the MOT history, the ownership changes, the reg plate changes. Sometimes when it's been involved in an accident, it shows you photographs of the recorded damage so you can see how bad it was. So it's a really useful tool. It doesn't take long to generate and it isn't expensive, and it's cheaper still if you use my promo code HIGHPEAK. That's HIGHPEAK, all one word, HIGHPEAK, and you'll save yourself 20% off each and every check that you do. And you can use that promo code as many times as you like. It isn't just a one-time thing. So yeah, I wouldn't dream of buying a used P38 without doing one of those checks first. Now, used prices, for a decent one, you'll spend between £4,000 and £8,000. When these things were new, they cost around £50,000, which was a hell of a lot of money back in 2002, wasn't it? What I'd recommend you go for is a nice original example, not one that's covered in chrome or horrible dark privacy glass, or side steps or 3D regs. You want a nice, wholesome example. You also want one with excellent service records and 2 keys. That's really important. You can pick these up for about £1,000 on Facebook Marketplace, but I wouldn't recommend that. The advert will no doubt include the words non and runner, or the words suspension and fault. And that isn't the kind of thing you want to buy. You want to buy a nice original example. And the good thing is, they still exist. There are plenty of nice ones out there, and it's quite a solid investment. Prices are only going one way, and while you own it, you've got one of the nicest old school luxury 4x4s money can buy. I've noticed from driving this one today, people still look at it. It still turns a lot of heads. It's just got so much presence and it still says a lot about you. Of course, what it might say is that you enjoy pain and you own a multimeter, but still, it says something. So what do I think of the P38? Well, yes, it's flawed, and yes, it's complicated, and no, it won't be the most reliable car you can buy, but I think in the timeline of Range Rovers, it is quite an important model. It's a very characterful modern classic, and if you like Range Rovers, then I certainly wouldn't hesitate. That's why I've got one. I bought one last year, and I love it. Like I said, this is a bridge between old and new. It might be the first modern Range Rover, but it's the last Range Rover you can understand. I think it's posh, I think it's capable, and when it's running properly, absolutely brilliant. It's just iconic. And for those times when it's not running properly, then at least it gives you something to talk about in the pub, doesn't it? Well, I think that's about it, guys and girls. So thank you once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and TikTok. I'll leave the links below. Oh, also very quickly, I just need to say a massive thank you to Tim for lending me this car in the first place. I do really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Cheers.